I'll have to tell you this.
Emily,
Can you listen to me? Can you hear me?
are you out of pictures?
All right. Here on yesterday, I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? Saturday or Friday? No, it was Friday. Why, Blake and Josie and Sam and Jack and Emily all came to spend at our place to spend a little bit of time. And Tango was inside the house. And Tango was standing. I was sitting on a chair like I am now, by the table, and Tango was just standing there being petted. And Aunt Josie told either Sam or Jack, one of them, I don't remember,
Jack,
said, sit down. To sit down at the table. And Tango was obedient and sat down. So Tango just sat right there. As soon as she says sit, why, Tango sat down. So we all had a little laugh about that, how obedient Tango was. And so the story I'd like to tell you tonight, there's three things that has to do with dogs. Three stories, more or less. One is that when I was growing up, and if I were a little stingy, or one of my brothers or sisters was a little stingy and wouldn't share, my mother would say, "Are you being a dog in a manger?" And now some of you don't know, maybe like Sam here, or Jack doesn't know what a manger is.
I do.
But a manger is where cattle come to eat. They'll stick their heads through these slats in the manger so they can eat the hay there. And so the story is that this dog would jump in the manger once the farmer was filled the manger full of hay. Then the dog would jump in the manger, and he would run back and forth, barking and nipping at the cows if they started to stick their head into the manger to eat. Now, the point of that is the dog could not eat the hay, just the cows. But he was being selfish in keeping the cows away from eating their meal. And so if we were, again repeating myself, if one of us was being maybe a little stingy and not sharing with others, why my mother would say, "Are you being a dog in a manger?" Meaning that all that candy, or maybe all that we might have, why we really couldn't eat all by ourselves. Now, I do not remember this dog that we had. I was too young to really remember. A dog by the name of Old Bob. He was a border collie. And my brothers and sisters and my parents really loved Old Bob. He was not only a very protective dog of all of us, but he was very obedient also. My dad told him to go down to the pasture, why he seemed to know exactly what cows needed to be separated from the others to bring them up to the barn to be milked. He was just the best working dog you could possibly have. And the people who owned the farm next to us had a lot of sheep. One of the problems we had when I was growing up, those of us who had sheep, is that there would be a few wild dogs, and these wild dogs would at night would terrorize the sheep and kill some of the sheep. And so there were farmers, ranchers were always, would be kind of on an outlook, looking out for that sort of thing, and if those dogs started coming into their property, well, then they would shoot them. And But this dog of ours, this favorite dog that all my older brothers and sisters and my parents loved so much and remembered so much, like I say, is very protective. And one night, evidently, there was this pack of wild dogs got into our neighbor's sheep, and they killed one of those sheep. And that next day, why, our dog was there in that pasture and was standing by that dead sheep and was barking and barking, barking, trying to get someone's attention. Well, the attention that he got was our neighbor. Now, our neighbor, I never knew his parents. They were, like I say, they were sheep people. They had a lot of sheep. But there's one son. These folks had passed away when by the time I was old enough to remember. But their one son was never married, and he was kind of like a hermit. His name was Jack Richards, and he was really quite a strange character. And so when he saw our dog out there by that sheep, barking to try to get someone's attention, why, he just assumed that he was the one who was the culprit. And so he brought our dog back to our place, and he demanded that my dad kill that dog. And my dad, trying to be a good neighbor and not believing for 1 minute that our dog had done that, but not having any evidence otherwise, and trying to be a good neighbor, took old Bob and took him down in the field with his rifle and took old Bob's life. My mother, like I said, I don't remember that, but my mother recounted that over the years of how she cried and cried and cried because that happened to be done, and how she was a little upset at my dad, never quite forgave him for not being a little bit more assertive and saying to Jack, no, our dog didn't do that, and so forth. And I guess that's what impressed me in my mind deeply was another story that my mother would tell. And it was similar to that, in the sense that the story was that, and some of you may have heard a story like this or the same story before. And that is that there's this wonderful, faithful, old farm dog. And again, a wild pack of dogs come running through these farmers, terrorizing their animals, their sheep and cattle and so forth, and chasing them and killing some. Well, this faithful old farm dog, when that pack of dogs, wild dogs, went through, he just kind of followed along. He just come along and ran along with the rest of these wild dogs. Now, he wasn't chasing the sheep with them. He wasn't killing any sheep. He was just running along with these wild dogs. When a farmer heard the racket and came out with his rifle and yelled, and all these dogs ran. Every one of them just took off and ran as fast as they could, except the faithful old farm dog. He stayed right there, started wagging his tail, and started trotting towards the farmer. And so the farmer took his rifle, and that was the dog he could see, and that was the dog he aimed at, and that was the dog he shot. And he killed this faithful farm dog. And so the point of the story that my mother was always trying to make when she told that story a number of times, and you've also, again, heard things like this, all you children, that you're judged by the company that you keep. And that was my mother's way of trying to teach her children that we should always choose good friends, friends with high standards and morals. And even though we may not be drinking or smoking or carousing in that way, why sometimes we have friends that do, that we know in school, and so sometimes why we laugh a little bit about becoming a designated driver or whatever. But the important thing has to do with understanding that you're judged by the company that you keep. And so you may not many times be the one who may have partaken of the drugs. You may not have been the one who did any shoplifting or anything like that. But you need to be careful about some of those individuals that you know have that reputation, or that if you happen to be with them, why, and they start suggesting things like that, or start participating in anything like that, that then you know that you need to leave immediately and get away from that. So that it's important that you make sure that you keep good friends, and therefore your reputation will be secure. All right, so Grandma, now it's her turn.
Oh, I don't have a story to tell.
Oh, tell us some little experience.
What would you like to know about? What kind of a story would you like? Something about what?
Like snow.
About snow. All right. One year, before I built the house I lived in now, I stayed in Grandma Helen's cabin, and the roof wasn't really high, but it was up a high enough roof, and I forget why I needed to go up on the roof, but I was going up on the roof for something. I think maybe to patch a hole around the stovepipe, I think. So the snowbanks were really, really high. So I put the ladder up next to the roof, and I climbed up on the roof, and I went and did what I had to do. And then when I was coming back down, there was snow on the roof, you see. And so I kind of got down on my tummy, or laid down on the snow, tried to get off onto the ladder, but the snow started to slide underneath me. So here was me, like this, sliding down the roof on my belly. And luckily, the antenna for the TV was coming right beside me, and I managed to just reach out and get my fingers just around that antenna, just like that, enough to catch myself so that I didn't fall and slide right off the roof and crash into the ladder, and then me and the ladder would have landed in a big heap in the snowbank. So I survived that one. Here's my snow story. I don't know.
What's yours?
Pardon?